This is Satyan Raju from CloudFabrix software. Today I'm going to show the CloudFabrix data exchange service, also known as cfxdx in its short form. There are many ways you can use CFX data exchange service. You can use it as a command line tool, use it as a Python API, or use it as a microservice. cfxdx is embedded in all of our CloudFabrix products. Today, I'm going to focus on the command line tool as well as Python API using Jupyter Notebook. On my laptop, I have already installed cfxdx as a Python package. You can download cfxdx as a container, and that container will contain all packages required to run the software. Now let's start the cfxdx. First thing you want to execute is help command to see all the available commands. So the list of commands it supports, right? You can see like it's, so we are going to go through most of these commands today. And then we're going to switch between the command line tool and then the Jupyter Notebook. The very first thing you want to know once you log into cfxdx is what kind of plugins are installed. The command to execute that is the plugins. And as you can see, it has a list of all the plugins and extensions and their versions. Currently, these are the plugins that are installed on this setup. Your setup might include extensions that you have downloaded or created yourself. Before we start accessing data, we need to know what kind of data sets are supported for each one of these plugins. So we refer them in our cfxdx as tags. So let's see all the supported tags in our system by executing a command called tags. As you can see, it has given all the 94 different tags and all the description for each one of these tags, right? So the tags can be two different types. The tags can be either a source, that means you can get the data from that source. A tag can also be a sink, which means you can save data into that target. Some tags can be both sources and sink as well. So I'm going to show you examples of each one of them. To just see all the tags that are sources, you can simply type a command called source. Now it will show you all the different tags that are just the sources. And the tags that are sink, you can type, let's say sink, and these are the 25 different tags that are sinks. Now each tag has a different capability, as you can see in the right side column here. To see all the tags and their capabilities, you simply execute a command called cap, which shows all the different tags and their capabilities. So when the tags that are sources typically have capabilities like a get data or data stream. Get data means if the tag supports get data, which means you can query the data from that source. When the data supports data stream, that means it supports the streaming of that data. When the tag that is a sink, you can essentially write the data into the tag. There are different ways to do that. One is you can append the data to already existing data to a sink. A typical example of an append data is typically log data, where you actually are always appending to the logs. And another example of an append data could be something like a Slack channel, where you are essentially sending messages that are being appended to the Slack channel. There are other cases where you want to replace the data completely. So whatever data set that you have retrieved, you have made some modifications, and then you want to replace the data. Or you can do, that's a data replace. And you can also do data update. Essentially, getting the data and then changing certain parameters and then updating the existing data, right? So those are the different ways of the syncs. And the tag, for getting the data itself, the tags can be, again, different types. As you can see with these tags, there are 3 different types of prefixes. And the first one, either they can be an API based tags or they can be query based tags. In the case of an API based, you can see that you have an @ symbol. So all the tags that have @ symbol, that means they are essentially API calls. The tags that have star or hash, those are your query based tags. So the one which says hash means the query is executed on the source. So we call it as a source filtering. And the tags that have a star means that you have retrieved the data into a CFX data exchange and then you are filtering the data. They are destination filtered tags. And I'm going to show examples of each one of them, right? And so let's, without any delay, let's start, getting some of this data and show you how easy it is to actually get the data and process the data. For this, I am going to use AWS as an example. All the AWS tags are as an example. To see all the list of tags that are supported by AWS, all I have to do is source and just write any word that you can do. Here in this case, I'm just going to use AWS. As you can see, there are about 33 tags that have the word AWS, but really about 31 of them are AWS specific tags. And so for each region, it has created a different tag. And so in this particular case, I am going to select a region from the west, essentially. So I would like to get all instances that are running in the west region from EC2, right? So I'm going to select tag, and then I'm going to type, this particular tag name. Now the tag is selected, as you can see from the prompt, and it also shows the capabilities of that tag. In this particular case, it's get data, which means it's a source tag. You can't write it back anything to instances. That doesn't make sense, right? You can't just write something back into instances. So now once we have set the tag, now you need to get the data. The command to get the data is called data. If you simply press this data, that means you want to get, without any filtering, without anything, simply get all the data that is out there in our US West 2 region in EC2 instance, all instances of EC2. So I press data. Now it's going to get all the data, and you can see from that we have our own visualization tool. You can get the data, you can save the data into a CSV file or an Excel file or a JSON file, or different formats that we support, which I'm going to show you. And you can load them into a spreadsheet, like an Excel, and you can do a lot of processing. But in many cases, you just want to see what kind of data exists. You don't want to go through multiple steps. So we have created our own visualization tool from the command line, that you can actually do a lot of things. I can go through all the different columns. There are a lot of things you can do from this visualization tool. To see all the possible things, you press question mark, and it shows the help of all the different things you can do inside this visualization tool. In this particular case, I simply want to select 2 columns, instance ID and instance type, because what I'm trying to look for is, how many instance types, of large instances exist. So I'm going to select C, right? And then I'm going to type word instance. That means it's going to filter across all these columns in anywhere it appears instance. Now I have 2 different columns. One is instance type and instance ID. Those are the 2 columns that it has filtered. As you can see, there are different types of instance types. There are extra large instances, and then there are large instances, right? Micro instances. And now you can also do, as you have seen in the help, I would like to sort the values, right? So you can do sort, and you can say instance type. If you do this, then it automatically sorts that particular column. You can also do a lot of filtering, right? Let's say I wanted to only see 4x large instances in the entire my data set, right? So I can do now that filtering by pressing, and say this is our CFX query prompt. And I'm going to introduce you to CFX query in a bit from a command line as well. But here I can say something like this. It can be any column, but in this particular case, I can say instance type contains Raj, right? And you can see all micro instances have disappeared from it, and you can see all extra large instances. So you can, at any point of time, if you want to go back, you can simply go back by pressing 0 to your original data that we have retrieved. Or you can also do something called what we call it as a command called describe, which I press D for it, which shows that the data that we have selected, you can see that there are 37% of our instances are in extra 2x large, and then you have extra large and 4x large, and M5D extra large, and all the different types, right? So it is essentially summarized everything and described the data for you, right? And so I'm going to now go back to my original data, and then you can see all the different columns and everything right here. Now I'm going to go, quit from here, and I'm going to come back into our command line. Now, since you already retrieved the data, in order for you to revisualize the data, you don't have to really go and get the data again. You press visualize command, and then it goes back to visualization tool, and we can do all the things that we have done there, And so in visualization tool also allows you to export the data and all, but those are the things I'm going to show you, right? So here, as you can see, right, I have the data. So I want to simply save this data export it into a CSV file. All I need to do is, put a pipeline into in instances, for example, right, .csv. If I did that, as all the data that it has retrieved, it's going to save into that CSV file, right, and in any CSV format. And we support, I mentioned earlier, we must support multiple formats. You can also do, if you want to simply save it to a Microsoft Excel format, you don't have to specify anything. Just change the extension to XLX, and then it will save everything into Microsoft Excel format. And you can do the same thing with the JSON format, right? If you want to programmatically access your data and you feel comfortable processing the data in JSON, simply save it into a JSON format, right? So the pipeline, I'm going to explain a little bit. I mentioned the word pipeline. I'm going to come back to that one, explain pipelines in a bit. But before we do that, I really want to show you another example of how I can filter the data and send the data into an email, right? It is a typical use case is that you have started a lot of Amazon instances, and you want to keep track of all those instances, and particularly the extra large 4x large instances. You want to get a daily report of all the 4x large instances that are running in Amazon. So the way to do it is we can go back and get the data, right? Now I can filter it here. I can say something like instance type contains, right? And I can say 4x large. Now if I press this one, you see that it has given me only 4x large instances, right? There are 5 rows that are 4x large instances. Now I would like to send an email, right? So what you do is you create a pipeline, and then you can say you can use your email plugin, right? That's already installed. There are many versions of email plugin that's installed, and you can say something like subject equal to something like 4x large, and you can say recipient equal to I give my own name, my own email address. There are other things that you can do. You can configure various other parameters. I just made a typo here, right? That's it. And all you need to do is, just simply say, here is my data and I want to filter it and I want to send it as an email, right? And it sent me an email using XLS format. I would have received an email with all those 5x large instances. So imagine how simple the job is to be able to get the data from various sources, do a lot of processing, sort, filter, do a lot of that kind of stuff, and then simply send it to a target system, a target sync, whichever it is an email, or we could also do something like that to a Slack channel. Let's say you want to periodically post certain information that you have retrieved from one of these plugins, and you want to send it to Slack channel. You can do that. In the interest of time, I am going to actually send that here. Let's say I'm going to copy the command here because it's a large command, and then I'm going to paste it here. You can see here I'm getting the data, I am creating a pipeline, I'm using a Slack plugin, and then I'm saying it's a file upload, and I'm specifying the channel name here, right? And then you can specify what the message is, what the format is, in what format you want to send it, right? It could be a CSV file, like I said, any one of the formats that we support. And then you can provide a title for that attachment, and then you say go send it. Now it would have sent a message along with that extension into your Slack channel. So it makes it very easy to retrieve the data, process the data, and send it to a target system. Now I would like to show you the Python API using Jupyter notebooks. If you're not familiar with Jupyter notebooks, they're very popular with, all the way from the experts, data scientists, to even a beginner programmers. The advantage of a Jupyter notebook is that it's a web-based interactive environment that combines code, simple Python code with the plots, maps, and animations, videos, anything, that you want to visualize. You can do all of that in a simple notebook, and they are very easy to share, and you can generate, a lot of HTML and PDF from it. So it's very, very popular. So I'm going to, rather than showing you as a single program, I'd like to show you, the notebook, so that we can see the different parts of our program. And also notebooks make it very easy to do a lot of visualization, and I'm going to show you some of the examples. Here, I've already preloaded the notebook, and I have made some imports here. And if you are not familiar with the Python code, don't sweat it out. We're going to go back to our command line tool, soon, right? I just wanted to show this to show you that the features that are available in the command line, all of them, you can do that in Python with just as much ease. So here we're going to do an import, and then we are going to load our configuration file, just like we have passed a parameter to our command line tool. And we are going to do that here. And let's say we want to get all the tags that are out there, right? And we had a tags command in our command line tool. Here you have a simple API called get tags. And if I run this, and you can see that you got the same exact information, with the tags and descriptions and tag types and everything. So it's just a one-line code to be able to do that. And the next thing is, as we have done with our thing, I'm just going to select the same tag here, right? So I've selected the tag, and then I say get data. This is the method. Remember the capabilities, if you remember, get data. So this is how it is. So I'm getting this as a data frame. Think of data frame as like, it's a spread, a CSV file or a spreadsheet, where if you're not familiar with it, where you have rows and columns. And here I'm just going to run this, and you can see all the data that I've shown you, our visualization tool, in the command line. Now you're able to see here in this particular data frame. Now, next thing I want to show you is how easy it is to plot certain information, right? And we have all the different instance types. So what I have done is I've created a simple 3 lines code, and I'm saying here, that we are simply going to run this and create a pie chart. So I press this, and you can see with 2 lines of code, I'm able to get a pie chart of all the different instance types, how many instance types and all. You can obviously do a lot of things with the customization. You can do really fancy stuff. I've taken a very simple example, but you can do a lot of sophisticated charts using the Python libraries that are already available, right? So now let's examine to see how easy it is to actually run a CFX query, CFXQL query in a Python code versus in the command line, right? And it is just as easy. You can see we have created an extension for data frames. You can simply say, just like we have done it in a command line, you simply say instance type contains 4x large, right? And then it basically filtered everything, and there are only 2 columns that we are interested in are the instance ID and then the instance type. And you can do that here as well. You can simply say run, and then those are the 5 things we have gotten there, as well as we have gotten them here as well, right? So these are the different values for each one of them, and then you have like all the different the information that you have. The next thing is to be able to do the email, right? And we have done that email in one line. We have done that email by setting up the pipeline, right? And here is same thing here we are doing here. Essentially we are creating a pipeline, and then we are just writing the code and say go execute the pipeline. And that essentially it's just a very, very simple. And I'm going to show you how to generate a lot of this code. And you don't need really a lot of expertise to write any of that. You can simply write like few lines of code, and you can essentially do everything that we are able to do in the command line. And obviously programmatically doing it means you have a lot more control, and you can do a lot of more sophisticated stuff. Now let's talk about pipelines, right? For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of pipelines, think of it as a workflow. This is a very common concept in a machine learning, but many of you may not be aware of it. It's like a workflow where you're getting a data, you're processing the data, you're doing some kind of filtering, you're doing sorting and all sorts of things. And then you're sending it to a next task, which is in the workflow, your next flow, where you may be sending it to another sink. And then from there, you're sending it to another sink, or you may be running some kind of machine learning algorithm to store the results. And I have examples of that I'm going to show you at the end. But the advantage of pipelines is that you can essentially create a pipeline, as you have seen with the previous examples, with one line. You don't have to write a really sophisticated code to do the pipeline, right? I mean, you have seen this with the email. You're able to create a pipeline, and where you're able to filter everything and send an email all in one line. Now, how do I do this programmatically, right? And so let's go back to our notebook here. And you can see I have a configuration for pipeline, and I am executing that pipeline as I explained. But now, how did I get this text? It's very, very simple. This is just a YAML syntax. There's a specific type of format. But if you're not familiar with it, you don't need to sweat anything. You can go back and execute the same command from command line. It will actually print the YAML syntax that you are trying to do. You simply copy paste that here, and then you execute the pipeline. So we made it very easy for the people who want to do programming, but they really don't want to do a lot of this YAML kind of things. You can essentially set up your pipelines in the command line and copy paste that pipeline information into your Python code. So if I just run this, it would have the same things that we have done, right? And it has basically sent the results, and I can even print to the advantage of pipeline is that the data that you go from one time source to another one, if you can keep on chaining them. you keep on chaining these tasks as long as tags, as long as they're all syncs, right? You want to start with a source, then you send it to a sync, and then you keep on sending it to syncs. And that's what we can do. And you can also look at the data that we've just sent it, right? You can examine the data, and you can see, there are 5 records, and all of them all of them have the extra large instances. Here is I'm going to come back to more complex pipelines, but essentially that we are able to do a simple pipeline. Now what I want to do is I want to go back to command line, and I want to show you some of the more advanced capabilities, right? At the beginning of this demo, I told you that there are different types of tags, right? As we press, and I said we have a source filtering, destination filtering, and APIs. Now I want to show you the advantages of some of the, like a source filter based tags, as well as some of the API based. So let's examine some of the source filtering, which means any filtering criteria that you have provided, it's filtered at the source itself. For this, I am going to select a ServiceNow tag, right? So if you want to look at all ServiceNow tags, you just simply say tags snow, and it will show you all the tags that have the word snow. Now for this, I'm going to select the incidents. So as you can see, it's a hash, right? And hash means source filtering. So I'm going to select this tag, and you can see here the capabilities. This is a perfect example of where a tag can be a both source and a sync. And so here I'm selected the incidents, right? And now I want to get the data, but I only want to get the data for which I need to be right. I only want to get the data from the description field if it contains the word email. So if I press this, now it's going to show me all the different incidents that have the word email. Again, I want to see only description columns. Remember, you can select the columns, and I can simply say, just show me any column that has the word description. And you can see each one of these have the word email, right? So it's automatically filtered all the instances, all the incidents from ServiceNow, and filtered at the source and got into our system only those incidents that have the word email. Again, it's very, very simple. You don't have to worry about getting the lot of data and doing processing. The source system itself supports it. Okay, and a similar thing we can do similarly we can do this in the Jupyter notebook as well, but it's just a simple example that I'm going to skip going back to Jupyter notebook. Now let's create a pipeline where, since we are in ServiceNow, what I want to do is I want to actually get some inventory that I have collected through our collector, stored in our AII Express, and then update the config CMDB of ServiceNow. If you use ServiceNow CMDB, how easily it gets outdated, right? You have to constantly update it with the latest information. There are a lot of CloudFabrix tools that they do that. We have our own edge collector, and we have our AI Express, and then with a combination of cfxdx and all of that, it makes it very easy for you to keep your ServiceNow CMDB up to date. So for this, I'm going to use the AI Express tags. So let's look at all the tags that have AA, right? I have the AA Express assets, I have the network, and I have the components. There are 3 different tags, and I'm going to choose the tag, the network tag here. And so we say tag and the name of the tag, right? And it may have a lot of data. For this demo, I want to show you another command that restricts the amount of data that you get from a system, and that command is limit, right? So I'm simply going to, in this particular case, say 10. That means just get me 10 rows, and you can set the limit to anything. If you set the limit to 0, that means it's unlimited. However many rows there exist, just please bring them all. In this particular example, I am simply going to get only 10, right? And so I've set the tag to limit, right? And then now I can see, if I say data, I'm only going to see the 10 rows, with all the different information. Now what I want to do is I want to take the information, network information that are all chassis, right? And when you run a network inventory, you typically tend to get chassis, cards, all the modules, sub-modules and everything. And here we are only trying to get the ones that are chassis, and then there's a model associated with it, and then they have an IP address and everything. Those are the only ones we want to send it to CMDB. So in the interest of time, I've actually saved that query. So let me show you here. Here is my CFX QL query as well as the entire pipeline. What we have done here is, let me close it here and show you what we have done is we have gotten a data and we are filtering it based on the equipment type is chassis, and then the model is not null, and then we are getting the host name as a name because the CMDB model has that property as name, and then we have FX model as the model ID. This is AIA model, so we are able to essentially map the data, not only get the data, filter the data, but you're able to map the data into different attributes, and an IP address as a lowercase IP address, and we are sending it to CMDB network. In one simple pipeline, in one single line, you're able to update your entire your CMDB, in this case particularly network. You're able to update that information. So as you can see, the power of the CFX data exchange service, right? And with the combined with the pipelines, you can get the data from any source, process the data, and you can send it to any number of sinks through pipelines. Now let's explore some of the other plugins that we haven't touched yet. So let's go back and look at all the plugins that we have using this plugin command, right? We have, in this, as I mentioned, in this system, I have about 25 different plugins. The one plugin that I would like to really go and show, the power of the platform is called a data gen plugin. A data gen, as in, short name for data generator, is a cfxdx plugin which can generate data, on demand based on data templates. Data generation can be used to generate, or simulate events, logs, metrics, traces, alerts, incidents, change requests, anything that you can think of, right? It can essentially generate a lot of, simulate this data based on the templates that you have provided. DataGen can be very useful to simulate different AIOps scenarios for chaos simulation, and DataGen, really can help accelerate the AIOps deployment. As you know, AIOps deployments can be extremely complex and complicated because typically you are integrating with a lot of different types of tools, and in order for you to set up some of the ML algorithms and everything, you need to have a specific type of data to preview, right? And you can either do with the live data or everything, or you can just get the templates from based on a live data and use this plugin to simulate a lot of it. And so let's explore this data gen. So let's look at all the tags that are in the data gen plugin, right? So here we have set of tags here, and the specific tag that I am going to select is the semantic IDS logs. That's the data set that I'm actually generating, simulated data generating based on the template. So I say tag. Oh, sorry, I did not copy that properly. So let me say command C tag and then semantic IDS tag. So that particular tag is now selected, right? Now what I'd like to do is, I'd like to actually get the data from that tag, generate the data, and then use the data, create a pipeline, to do some mapping, and then create another, and then top as the part of that pipeline, I would like to now send it to our ML related sync, right? And so let me do that by just copying this command to save the time. Here is my data sync, and here is my, I'm going to explain this pipeline in a minute, but here is the data, and then the query for is this timestamp after minus 30 days, which means last 30 days data. And I send it to CFX filter and then say map it to message as a description. And then I'm sending it to our ML plugin, right? And this is a CFX USML, as in, CFX unsupervised machine learning plugin. And then log clustering is essentially clustering, logs based on the column that has the description. That's our simple plugin. And so let's execute this, and I can show you what it generates, right? So what it has done is, oh, never mind. We have to go back. I would like to increase the limit to 1,000 rows, because remember we set it back earlier to 10. Now I want to reset it back to 1,000, right? Now let's go back here now and re-execute this, because with 10 rows, you can do really a lot of clustering. And as you can see, all these messages that it has simulated based on the templates, now it's able to create the clusters for them. And, and we can use the describe command to see how many clusters are created for each type. As you can see, cluster 7 is 18%, cluster 5 and all of them, right? So we can go back and explore to see which messages are in which cluster and all of that. And this makes it easier, for us to be able to get the data, create these clusters, name the clusters, and then deploy them in our AIOps solution. And my colleague Manoj is going to show you a very detailed demo of the ML capabilities from the cfxdx in the next hour. So let's go back here, and again, this is essentially what's generated. So that's essentially one of the tags that we can, the interesting plugins that we have is the data generator or data simulation plugins. Now let's go look at some of the other plugins that you might want to use them, right? I mean, we've already seen the email plugin, right? So if I say tags and email, it shows, like as I mentioned here, there are two different types of emails. For each one of the emails, like for a Gmail and Outlook, I've set up a separate tags. If you have an AWS mailing system, you can do that as well. And we have tags related to Elasticsearch, so you can say tags Elastic, right? ES, which basically shows all the Elasticsearch related tags, which is essentially you can get the information from any source and you can save them into Elastic ES, and then you can see all the Elasticsearch related tags here. So I mean, let's go look at some Azure tags, right? And let's say tags Azure. Now let's say you want to get all the instances that are in the Azure tags. Again, it's as simple as selecting the tag, and then you can say data, and then it goes and gets all the tags, all the instances from Azure, and it shows in this particular case there are only 8 instances on that setup. Sorry, 9 instances, I'd say, and it has all the information from Azure. So as you can see, right, as Teju explained in the previous presentation, it's very easy to get data from any source. It's very easy to map the data or run through queries and filter the data, sort the data, and then save the data into one of the target sinks supported by the system plugins, and all many times with just one single line. Also, let's say you want to automate the schedule, right? I mean, cfxdx service that I mentioned earlier actually has a lot of features related to scheduling, a lot of this and creating workflows and all of that kind of stuff. But you can also do a lot of these from command line itself, right? Let's say I wanted to do, I wanted to simply do minus execute F5, right? From command line. I can say something like this, scripts and email. That's my script. I can go back and I can show you what the email script looks like. All it is doing is it's getting the, selecting the tag called Slack users. And so essentially getting a list of tag users, and it is sending that into an email, right? And that's a simple task here. And I can do that by here and say, so if I can run that from command line. So as you can see, I just press here and then it executes. Now you can put it as a cron job, or any one of the schedulers if you can configure, you can do that, or you can put it as part of your scripts, larger scripts. All you are able to do it with a command line. Right? So that's the power of CFXDX. Thank you.